Hello and welcome back. I'm Steve Clemons, editor-at-large of The Hill. We're delighted to have you joining us for the second hour of the Future of Healthcare Summit. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Biosimilars Forum, for their support of today's great program. We spent the first hour on lessons we've learned from the coronavirus pandemic. We're going to expand our lens in this session to look at policymaking, breakthroughs, and innovation in the face of seen and unseen challenges. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at #TheHillHealth. And we're taking questions there. You can see I've got a bunch of them here that have already come in. So speakers beware. And if you experience any trouble with the live stream, please refresh the page. It should be a quick fix. I don't believe them, but that's what they say. Let's get started. I'm pleased to introduce my first guest, the highest health official in the land, Alex Azar, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Secretary Azar has a breadth of experience in both the public and private sectors. His key areas of focus include healthcare reform, research, and innovation, all of which have assumed added significance in the coronavirus era. Secretary Azar, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. We've had a really fantastic forum, and it wouldn't be what it would be without you. So thanks for being here. Let me start
My pleasure, Steve.
Let me start off and just ask you, we've had a lot of discussion about various dimensions of the coronavirus challenges from, the front line, what's going on in communities, the debate about schools. But what I'm really interested in right now are vaccines, because there's a lot of confusion out there about what we're going to do. But vaccines seem to be vital of getting to that point. So is there anything you can tell us about where we're at on that front, Operation Warp Speed, and your oversight and encouragement of a vaccine that's going to save us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking about Warp Speed and what we're doing on vaccines. So what we're doing with Warp Speed, and the president he commissioned us to say, I've heard the pharma company timelines, and they're also drawn out. I used to be at a pharmaceutical company. I know these timelines. I know why they're drawn out. And he said, can we, with the full might of the U.S. government and all of the financial resources that we can bring to bear, can we compress those timelines while still delivering safety and efficacy on vaccines? And we said, yes, we can. And so we're following basically two tracks. The first is you compress the development timelines by reducing any unnecessary delay or inefficiency in that system. The second is you actually invest at scale upfront commercial manufacturing rather than waiting until you have phase 2, 3, or even final FDA approval. You build scale and you manufacture product now at risk with that kind of investment. And that's what enables us to fairly dramatically reduce the estimated timelines. So what have we done? We currently have 4 major investments that we've made in vaccine candidates. So we have the Moderna vaccine, which came out of Dr. Fauci's lab originally. That's an mRNA platform vaccine. We have the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which is an adenovirus vaccine candidate. J&J Janssen, which is also an adenovirus platform candidate. And then we just this week announced a $1.6 billion potential investment in advanced development and advanced manufacturing of a Novavax, a protein vaccine. So we now have major bets in all 3 of the major potential platforms for vaccine. With each of them, we will drive towards manufacturing to have tens of millions of doses by this fall and hundreds of million into the beginning of next year. And phase 2, 3 clinical trials for many of them will be beginning just later this month, probably.
Do you think it's important to communicate to the public more what you just said, that there's some risk in this, that you could invest so much in one because that's what we need to do today, but one of these vaccine candidates or others that we may not even have talked about might be flops?
Well, we have, and we will continue to do so. We are placing multiple investments across a portfolio, and we're not done because we know that it's science, it's biopharmaceutical development. Not everything will necessarily hit, and that's why we're placing these investments. But again, it's that commission. When the same country that can do the Apollo project can radically change the speed of development of a vaccine given the urgencies. Look, we've spent $3 trillion so far just in government spending connected to coronavirus, not even considering the economic impact. So I like to say the return on investment for a vaccine is almost infinite in terms of the investment that you would make.
Mr. Secretary, I want to move in a moment to kind of the broader healthcare ecosystem, which is also what we're talking about today. You know, the various dimensions. Not everything is COVID. There are other pieces of the puzzle that I'd love to get your insights into. But I do want to ask you about the manufacturing side and kind of the international research base for this, because this isn't just an American problem. This is a global problem. Some of the firms that you've talked about have global manufacturing deals. How does America position itself both so that it gets vaccines developed and produced here, but it doesn't, excuse my language, give the finger to the rest of the world? Like, how do you manage the international dimensions of science and production and global need today?
Yeah, so let me give you an example just from like the AstraZeneca platform, for instance. So they took the Oxford vaccine, that adenovirus candidate, and AstraZeneca has the development rights in most of the world that they contracted with Oxford for. What we've done is contract for the research and development work here in the United States, so clinical trials, but also then for manufacturing here in the United States. Now, that doesn't preclude they're doing manufacturing elsewhere in the world. And in fact, I think they've talked about several billion doses to be manufactured in India and elsewhere for the rest of the world. We certainly don't stand in the way of that. We encourage that. With our candidates, though, where we're investing in U.S. manufacturing and U.S. fill and finish capacity so that we're not dependent on any movement of product across borders from outside the United States. But in no way would we do anything to preclude development for the rest of the world. We coordinate closely with the G7, with the European Union, and Andrew Whitty, who's leading the ACT Accelerator project. So it's a very tight international collaboration here. We're all working towards a common goal.
And because of current tensions, are you just basically, are we putting a fence around China right now and just leaving, China out of this puzzle?
Well, China is not a participant in the ACT Accelerator project even, and certainly we're not collaborating with them in any direct way on our vaccine or therapeutic manufacturing. So they're doing, I believe they're doing their own thing. We're working very much in collaboration with the rest of the world, though, as I just mentioned.
Well, one of the other dimensions we've been looking at is the kind of broad state of healthcare in America, and there are a lot of different moving pieces to that, and sometimes people look for silver bullets. There's also been this administration, the Trump administration, has wanted to replace Obamacare with something. How have you been managing that? Is there an alternative that you've been working on as you look at how we provide healthcare insurance and an alternative to Obamacare?
So, Steve, you said something really interesting with your question there. You referred to silver bullets in healthcare, and I think what we've learned as part of the experience with the promises that failed with Obamacare is the American people with healthcare, they don't really like utopian visions. Most people, when it comes to their health care, are actually relatively happy with what they have. They don't want that taken away, and they would like to see continued incremental improvement with their experience, with the choice, with the cost, and the outcomes that they have in health care. But they don't want their settled expectations or delivery, their relationships with their hospitals, their relationships with their doctors. They don't want those taken away or disrupted. And so that's how we've tried to approach healthcare, is how can we deliver more choice, more options for people in the individual market, more options in Medicare for people? How can we deliver lower cost through transparency, through reducing prescription drug prices, through ending surprise medical bills? And how can we deliver better health by tackling some of the real discrete and impactable health challenges of our country, like ending the HIV/AIDS epidemic, solving the rural health care crisis, solving the maternal mortality crisis, ending the opioid epidemic, addressing and tackling social determinants of health, fixing how we take care of people who have end-stage renal disease and preventing it in the first place. So we look at healthcare, health, for 330 million Americans, instead of only thinking about the important issues, but the more limited issues of the 10 million in the individual market. And we're going to be a ready, willing partner for Congress if there ever comes a time when there's an impetus to address the Affordable Care Act with Congress again.
One of the big zinger items, and you get out and poll the American public on healthcare and healthcare transition, I largely agree with you that most people, want to keep what they've got. They do worry about those that are not covered, and how does this all work? But they worry about losing coverage of pre-existing conditions. And so the administration has in my view, you can kind of look at what you like, but there have been sort of different moments where you could read different things. Is your tenure there committed to maintaining coverage of pre-existing conditions?
Absolutely. The president has made this as an ironclad commitment from him directly, and it's shared by his administration, I can assure you, which is, first off, it's in statute already in HIPAA that pre-existing conditions are covered. But importantly, we add to that the commitment that people with pre-existing conditions will have access to affordable healthcare financing options. And so that commitment is there. So, the Obamacare, while it has insurance for individuals with pre-existing conditions, it's not always an affordable solution for them. So we've got to stop talking about this as if we're sort of living in the land of milk and honey with Obamacare. When you are a couple that makes $70,000 a year and you're living in Nebraska and you're having to spend $38,000 a year on premiums and $12,000 in deductibles, and you have pre-existing conditions, that's not actual affordable health care financing for you. We do believe there are ways to approach this working with Congress. We do believe there are proven mechanisms. One of the fatal conceits of Obamacare was you're going to make the healthy people in the individual market pay more, excessively more, to fund affordable insurance for the less healthy people in that same individual market. We believe in the protection and the affordable access to health insurance for people who have pre-existing conditions, but we actually think of that as a societal obligation to help them. And so we will work with Congress, if the time ever comes, to find solutions that actually help those people get real insurance, real affordable insurance, allow them to have the coverage they need, while letting healthy people, those who don't have the pre-existing conditions, have the insurance that meets their needs at the costs that they need also.
Mr. Secretary, I don't know what it's been like for you during the time of COVID. You look like you're in your office. I'm actually in a studio. But my life has moved on to Zoom and onto Skype and the kind of digital platforms we're all experiencing. We used to talk about it, but now we're really doing it. And healthcare is there. Telehealth. We have the CEO of Teladoc joining us in a bit. And I'm interested in, I think there's a lot of nervousness out there, among some people who've been getting health through new media, new mediums. And that's getting covered right now under the things that you have laid out for people to get that covered. But there's a worry that that's going to fall back. How much of this new world that we've entered into of health consultations and health online, if you will, is going to remain paid for under our system after we move past, at some point, God willing, the COVID era?
Well, this pandemic has led to a lot of innovation, actually, in healthcare through the president's leadership, the national emergency authorities that we've been able to use to waive some of the embedded requirements that have ossified and the healthcare system in America, kept it as a 1960s style of delivery. We've been able to actually break through that with deregulation, and telehealth is one of those things we've wanted to do for so long, but Congress has been unable to actually change the Social Security Act to make Medicare and Medicaid amenable to telehealth. And now that's available. And I'll tell you, I've been traveling all over the country, and I visit with doctors and hospitals and nursing homes. I think we'd have a revolution if anyone tried to go backwards on this. This is now, I think, an embedded part of our healthcare system. It has changed the nature of delivery. It's brought us better up to date in the system. And we're going to do everything we can by regulation to keep the gains that we've had that put the patient and that doctor relationship, the hospital relationship in the center. And we'll work with Congress to get statutory changes as needed to make sure that we keep whatever is required by statute.
Mr. Secretary, final question. Dr. Fauci this morning was blowing the whistle as loudly as he could, saying worried about what's happening in certain states in the country, that a lot of folks need to take this a lot more seriously. How worried are you that America is not getting this right and that we're going the wrong direction? on COVID?
Well, what we're experiencing in the Southeast and Southwest, and are frankly seeing emerge in some other areas in the country, is a very serious public health situation, very serious, and we've called that out. But it often is phrased as a question of, is that about reopening? We don't believe it's about the fact of reopening in terms of a legal or regulatory structure. It's rather, how are we behaving within that context? Are we practicing appropriate social distancing? Are we wearing facial masks, facial coverings, especially in circumstances where we can't social distance? Are we practicing good personal hygiene? So we have to take individual responsibility in the construct of reopening work, school, and healthcare systems again. If we don't, we're going to see results like this. Now, that doesn't say that's every aspect of what we're experiencing, but that is definitely the feedback we're getting on the ground from these impacted areas, and that's why we've been talking so much about acting with good individual responsibility here.
Well, Mr. Secretary, great to see you, even if virtually, so thanks very much for joining us today and sharing your insights, and good luck with the challenges that are ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be with all of you.